we have a consent agenda. Everything with a check mark we vote on at one time, okay? So we will be asking you in just a minute to vote to adopt the agenda, to adopt the minutes, and for our motion for new business. And we also vote on adjournment at the same time. So one vote gets it all done, okay? So the board of directors has put forward a motion to send $1,500 each to each of the Georgia Senate candidates, John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock. So I'm going to go to the next screen, okay? And I know from what Rachel has told me about how many people are on the Zoom that we have a quorum, so I declare that we have a quorum. And now we're going to vote on the agenda, the minutes, and the motion to adjourn. So Rachel will put the poll up. Thank you, Rachel, from our communications team. And I can't see it, of course. We're just kind of weird. So please vote yes or no on all of these items as one package deal. Go ahead and vote. Are folks voting, Rachel?
Yes, folks are voting.
Folks are voting, yay.
Another couple of seconds here.
Okay.
And 47 out of 56 people have voted, and it's 98% yes and 1 vote no.
Okay, so we did it. All right, moving on. Janet, are you on the call? Janet's not here yet. Oh dear.
No, I'm right here. I'm right here.
Okay, great. Okay.
I muted myself during our pledge and all of that.
Oh, thank you. And look at your shirt. You have a Biden shirt.
I do.
Yay.
Yes, I'm still in the spirit. Yes.
Okay, so this is a list that we've shown you before of all of our candidates and who we sent money to. And in the column here, there's for the ones who were winners. And you'll notice that there are 2 that are elected that we didn't give any money to because they had no opponents, so they didn't have to run a campaign. Okay. So Janet, would you like to say something about our local candidates?
Yes, well, first of all, I'd like to give a shout out to all of the candidates, whether they were running for Congress or they were running for school board or water board or city council, because all those people had to put themselves out there. And I think the other thing that's important is all of these are people who live in our community. They're very local people here. So it was wonderful that we were able to support all of these people. And our city council folks, I think this is probably one of the first times that we have actually had a real race going on, and we actually had Dems step forward. So we had Beth Schwartz and John Christopoulos, who did a very nice showing in RSM. And then we had Pauline Hale, who worked very hard in Mission Viejo. So we were very happy with the results. Of course, we wanted to be able to inch our way in there, but we did make some headway. And then the really good news is that the day after the election, I had communicated with each of them, and they were all very buoyant, and they were all very still enthused and ready to do it again. So I think that's, shows a lot for our club, because I think we were very supportive of them, and they were fantastic candidates. They really, really worked hard. And thank you very, very much.
Right. And I know Janet and I have been talking, and we're already making lists of which seats are going to be up next time. And I actually emailed somebody today and said that there will be a county school board seat up in 18 months because those elections are in March. So we got to get ready.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
And of course, we're not done at the national level. You all know we want to win these 2 Senate seats in Georgia. And if you go to our website, you will see this wonderful picture on the website, and you can click on that and it will take you to places you can volunteer to help either Warnock or Ossoff. They're really running a joint campaign. So helping one or both is the same difference, I think. And we are hooked up on Mobilize, and their campaigns are on Mobilize. So every time they put up new things, it shows up in the feed under volunteers on our website. So you can write cards, you can send them money, you can make phone calls, and there's lots that you can do from here. So stay engaged. And I can't tell you how exciting the closeout of this year was. These two women, Ann Owens and Andrea Alexander, started going out there in 100-degree heat and saying that they're going to sell this stuff that we had bought, that we were going to put in the office, and we couldn't have an office. And they decided they were going to brave the Trump people that drove by and flipped them signals, you know. And they toughed it out, and they did a great job, and people were really enthusiastic, and they raised over $13,000. We kept having to have board meetings to go back and spend the money to give it to the candidates. So it was very exciting. And Anne, I think you wanted to say a few thank yous along the way to people who helped you. Are you on, Anne? You have to unmute yourself.
Unmute myself, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I couldn't have done it without Andy. We were like a team. You know,
Andy's the one with the dog.
Andy's the one with the dog, with Watts. And I also want to thank everybody that showed up because, well, first of all, I want to thank Patty Ebel. She started this whole thing by actually setting up a booth out in RSM with a couple of friends. And then we came out and sort of set up a booth beside her the first 2 weekends in RSM, and then we eventually moved to Mission Viejo. But she got the ball rolling, so I want to thank her for that. I also want to thank all the people that showed up and came and brought signs or used signs that we had and stood out there and got the, you know, got the crowds, got the people honking. Sometimes it would be like 10 minutes of solid honking, people going down the street and honking at us. And so it was very energetic. It was kind of like a big party. Everybody was very polite. They all wore masks. They all, the people that came to shop would stand back until the person buying was finished. And then they would, you know, step up to stay socially distant. So I was really happy with that. And I personally want to thank Jenny Golden for making all the wonderful masks that we sold, because anything that's pure profit, gold, you know, you don't have to pay anything off. So that's wonderful. And I know, I think I'm going to let you thank the other two people, Andrea.
Joan Gaffney donated all the jewelry, and what?
Oh, the signs. The
yes.
Yeah.
Ann Hewlett donated the "Hate Has No Home Here" signs, and those were fabulous. They sold right away. So she donated all of those.
Yeah.
Thank you to them too.
Yeah.
So you did the ordering for our T-shirts and got our T-shirts for us. Yeah. And I think the bumper stickers too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a team.
Yeah, but if you guys hadn't insisted on doing it and got us going, we wouldn't have done it. And so kudos to you.
Thank you.
We have a very energetic club, but it's time after 2 years that we reorganize ourselves again. And so Walt Lawson is the chair of the nominating committee. So if you're interested in a position as chair, vice chair, secretary, or treasurer, please get in touch with Walt. His number is there on the screen. And if you're interested in serving on one of these other committees, please email me. And we've had this notice in our e-newsletter several times. So I just wanted to reemphasize, we run, our officers have 2-year terms. Okay, so normally, you know, Faye would be here doing this report as chair of the field team, but she's been, her family's been hit with a loss, so she's not here tonight. But a lot of things happened, and I just want to call out the field team for the work that was done. At the last minute, we decided to try dropping literature at houses. It wasn't well planned, but we managed to cover 7,650 doors with literature on all of the candidates. And there were many phone banks that were going. Interestingly enough, we made over 400 calls just on the Monday and Tuesday of the election. And oh my gosh, the postcard program, it was 9,800 cards went out, handwritten to voters to urge them to vote. Most of those cards had, I think all of them had our entire list of candidates on it. And then Annie and Faye and, oh, I'm sorry, I'm freezing, Judy Fike, were our texters, and they did a great job, got out 97,000 texts. So we did a lot of outreach to voters. It was quite impressive. And we weren't able to do the canvassing that we love to do and that we think is so effective, but we found texting to be very, very effective. Whoop. I found this data from PDI, which we've used in some of our canvassing, and it was turnout data. And I found it fascinating that if you look at how people turned out in the 45th Congressional District, which is Katie Porter's district, we turned out 78% of the Democrats. In Orange County, it was only 73%, and across the state, it was only 66%. So we had higher turnout here than all across the state and across Orange County. And I think the fact that we were so active had something to do with that. But we're gonna go precinct by precinct that we walked and dropped literature to or made phone calls to, and we will be able to compare those precincts with other precincts that we weren't able to touch. So we're gonna do that, but turnout here was very impressive. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen after Annie introduces these gentlemen, and they're going to take over as our speakers and tell us what happened.
Okay, well, welcome to our first post-election program, and it's a really good one, on the path to the January inauguration. Our guest speakers are Michael Moodian and Fred Smoller, Chapman University professors. Each of them is a widely published author, educator, researcher, and community leader. I did want to tell you about questions. Our members have submitted questions in advance, and there's quite a lot of them. So we might not be able to get to all of them, and we might not be able to get through the chat room. But I know that Mike and Fred will try. So many thanks to both of you. Thank you so much for coming, and yay for the program.
Hey, all right, thank you so much. Annie, first question, can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
can hear you, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to enter presentation mode, and I take it you can see our PowerPoint screen?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for that introduction. My name, as Annie mentioned, is Mike Moodian, and very pleased to be here with my colleague and dear friend, Dr. Fred Smoller. And we are both from Chapman University. And Fred and I, during the last 10 years, co-direct the State of Orange County annual survey. And it's a research study that we conduct, and we release the results every spring of every year. We did our first study 10 years ago, and we've done the study the last 3 years. I'll be sure to share our contact info a little later on, and we'd be happy to share with you the links to our previous studies. But what we found back in early 2018 was something that we were a little bit surprised by. And not to toot our own horn, but in early 2018, it was our study that indicated that we were going to experience a blue wave in Orange County in the congressional elections later that year. And a lot of people from the Republican establishment laughed at us, and people thought that we were crazy. And sure enough, it happened. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start off talking a little bit about some of the local races and our take on some of the local races. Fred, for years, has been an advocate for vote by mail, and he is somebody who has been sounding, you know, the alarm, saying that this is something that we need to do. It's something that will increase turnout. It's something that's good for our democracy. And finally, it happened. And Fred's going to talk about vote by mail. And then I'm going to talk about some of the competitive elections that we had in Orange County and what our take was. And also another take that we have as it relates to Asian American political clout. And I'll explain more about what that means momentarily. Fred's going to talk about the propositions, but then we want to leave a lot of time to talk about the path going forward. So as Annie mentioned, we have a long list of questions that were sent to us. There are 14 questions altogether. We'll do our best to get through as many as possible, and we'll also keep an eye on the chat pane and try our very best again to answer your questions. One more quick thing before we continue. I have a document here that I came across as I was preparing for this call, and it was put together by Gary Kephart. I know Gary's on this call. Hi, Gary. Hope you're doing well. I sat at an IHOP with Gary in 2007, August 12th, 2007. And Gary had this vision back then for turning Orange County blue. And back then, I recall that there were even people, you know, on the Democratic side who certainly believed in the cause, but thought that that was kind of a crazy idea. And sure enough, it happened. And I was going back to this battle plan that Gary put together 13 years ago. And some of the things that he wrote here, he wrote about getting more precinct captains. Back then, the assembly district representing Southeast Orange County was 8071, forming a subcommittee PAC, getting Democrats elected at the local level, making better use of the county party, attending local meetings, et cetera, et cetera. And look at what happened. A little more than a decade later, it happened, and it's wonderful. So I want to thank Gary, and I know Fran is on this call, Ted Pearl, and Dr. Bill, so many familiar names that I see in the chat pane. Just want to thank you all for all that you do as somebody who's raising a 5-year-old in Orange County. I thank you for all that you're doing to make this a better place for our kids and our grandkids going forward. So I'm going to turn it over to my close friend and colleague, Dr. Smoller, right now. He's going to talk about vote by mail, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the elections. So Fred, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. I love those photos. I want everyone to see that I am the one with the dark hair, and Mike is much older than I am. I also congratulate you, and I say it sincerely. I came to Chapman in 1983, and Orange County then was a very different place. And quite frankly, the Republican Party, when it had elections, they were much more interested in who the primary opponent would be, that is the other Republican, and were pretty dismissive of who the Democrat was. And in fact, I would run for a state assembly in 1990, and they did a local debate here, and it was called Meet the Candidates, not even a debate, Meet the Candidates, and they invited all the Republicans, and they didn't invite me. And I had to write the fellow and said, gee, what is this, the former Soviet Union? I mean, what's going on here? You have Meet the Candidates, and you only invite one political party. That was unusual. Well, tonight we're going to present 4 simple takeaways that we want to support and discuss. And then, of course, the most important thing is getting to your questions. Mike is right. For many, many years, I've been pushing vote by mail. It seemed inevitable. It started out in 2000 when the legislature gave permission to California voters to register as what we call PERMs, permanent absentee voters, which would mean you'd be mailed a ballot every year. And vote by mail has been very successful. It's been run elections, if you know people from Oregon, they've been voting by mail for 25 years, and then Washington, Utah, Hawaii. And the idea is that you mail out the ballot and people get it in the mail. It often will be self-addressed and have a self-postage, and all they do is fill it out and they drop it in the mail. And it's a wonderful way to do things. It means you can take your time and fill it out a little bit, and if you want, you can even vote naked. I think Jeff Toobin, I guess you were mentioning him earlier. In any case, what we will take away from this election is that vote by mail is an overwhelming success, and we are permanently changing how we cast ballots in California, and I believe in the United States. And in fact, when we get past this COVID crisis, one of the great takeaways will be the way in which vote by mail has changed a democracy for the better. But I'll just mention a couple of things. First of all, vote by mail brought us almost unprecedented turnout. 87% of the registered voters in Orange County voted, which is European level. Now, we've always had a pretty good turnout. This isn't Texas after all. But if you average the turnouts from 2000 to 2016, they were 73%. And by 2020, it went up another 14 points. That's a great victory. Vote by mail also saves money because if you know how elections used to be run, you would have in Orange County 1,200 single precincts. My house was a precinct, and that meant that the registrar of voters had to put people in each of those precincts, pay each of the people who gave up space for that precinct, move equipment into that precinct, and each precinct would have to have someone who spoke several languages. It would have to be accessible to people with disabilities. And so you'd end up spending a fortune on each individual 1,200 precincts, plus the headache of bringing all that material back and then deconstructing the booths, the pens, and the signage, etc. Well, because we are fortunate to have a registrar of voters, a voter named Neil Kelly, all of that's gone, all of it. And so this saves about, several $100,000 each election cycle. And statewide, as you can imagine, since there's an election pretty much every week somewhere in California, it's going to save millions and perhaps even billions over time. But the good news is that it improves turnout. And what is also good is how smooth our election went. Other places like Pennsylvania, the legislature deliberately prevented the ballot workers, the election workers, from processing the ballots. That is, they couldn't open up the envelope. They couldn't unfold them. They couldn't prepare them for processing. They could not touch them. This was deliberately done so that these votes would be counted after the election day votes, and therefore President Trump, which he's doing today, challenged their veracity. Complete ridiculousness. In our vote by mail, which I am so happy went beautifully, when you mailed your ballot in, as I did in the 5th of October or 6th of October, it went straight through and it was processed. So we got to final results in less than a week. And that's how it should be. Neil did a brilliant job with that. And more importantly, it's a simple conclusion. And it really doesn't take a couple of PhDs to tell you this. You make it easier to vote, and you know what? Turnout surges. What a concept. Lower the barrier to informed participation and more people participate, as opposed to just holding elections on Tuesdays, and particularly where working people have to take the day off or something. Here you have 30 days. We had vote centers, we had vote by mail, and then about 20% of our people actually went into the vote center and cast a vote. What I'm most proud of with this, and I'll turn it over to Mike, is that Orange County, it seemed to me, it's not had the best national reputation. I mean, we had some real wackos in the Congress. We had a reputation nationally for retrograde conservative politics, save our state and hatred and all that stuff, anti-gay. And then we had a bankruptcy and then a huge $100 million fight about El Toro Airport. Well, now we have become the go-to state for early voting and vote by mail. So the nation is looking to Orange County, to Neil Kelly in particular, to say, what's the best way to do this? And I'm very proud of that.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to turn it over to Mike, who's going to talk about Purple County.
Wonderful. And thank you, Fred. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, what we have found in our recent surveys during the last couple of years is that Orange County is no longer the ultra conservative area that it has a reputation of being, going back to the early 1990s when there was a 22% registration advantage for Republicans versus Democrats. That registration advantage has decreased little by little to the point where today Democrats have roughly a 40,000 person registration advantage over Republicans in the county. And here's kind of a timeline of the recent years in terms of how we got to this year. First, 2016, Hillary Clinton defeats Donald Trump in Orange County. First time in OC that a Democratic presidential candidate won the county since FDR. 2018, massive blue wave. Democrats sweep every congressional seat in the county. Democrats then pull ahead in voter registration. And then here we are this year where Joe Biden, beats Donald Trump in Orange County by 10 points. Katie Porter has kind of emerged as this progressive hero right here, representing Mission Viejo and Tustin. Who would have ever figured? Mike Levin, my friend, strong environmentalist, is reelected, and Dave Min defeats Orange County's favorite conservative son, John Morlock. That is relatively shocking. Who would have predicted that years ago? To win a state Senate seat, a political newcomer for the most part. Dave Min, of course, ran 2 years ago for Congress, but somebody who's never held office. Josh Newman, in a district that has very, very close registration numbers, wins a seat and then is recalled because he's seen as vulnerable, and he's recalled because of support for a gas tax. And then Ling Ling Chang wins, and then he comes back and beats Ling Ling Chang. And then Connie Petrie Norris retains her seat against Diane Dixon. And even in areas such as the district that Stephen Choi represents, Melissa Fox certainly gave Stephen Choi a formidable challenge, as did Scott Reinhardt in South County against the Republican challenger. This is just an article to show you, again, registration numbers from 2019 about Orange County turning blue. We call Orange County Purple County. Fred and I are working on a piece right now for Voice of OC that will come out later this week or early next week, where we're not this ultra-conservative county that we once were. But we're also not Marin County. We're not this coastal outlier that we used to be among California coastal counties. But we're not Marin County or Alameda County. We're Purple County. We're a county that is looking more like the rest of the United States. And we'll talk about that in more detail a little bit later, particularly when we address your questions. And this is a breakdown of the districts and where the districts stand, where 2 districts flipped to Republican challengers, of course. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. There are, looking at cities, there are 8 cities that have about half of the population of the county. Santa Ana, Fullerton, Costa Mesa, Orange, Anaheim, Garden Grove, Huntington Beach, and Irvine make up about 50% of the population. And to go along with our argument that we're Purple County, they're divided. About 4 of them have Democratic city council majorities. 3 have Republican city council majorities. The resort interests in Anaheim really had a good election 2 weeks ago. And then there's one that's split, Huntington Beach, where you have 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and 1 with no party preference. And Celebrity Cells in Huntington Beach has a new city council member, former UFC fighter Tito Ortiz, who was the highest vote receiver in Huntington Beach and who is now making the case to be mayor. Huntington Beach is certainly a interesting city in Orange County. Tito Ortiz downplayed COVID-19, called it just the flu, and is a very devout Trump supporter. and he is a new city council member in Surf City. Also, to go along with some of, to add to what we've been saying, there were some Republican gains as well. Michelle Steele versus Harley Ruda. That is the most Republican district in the county. Of course, Steele won by a very, very small percentage. And I know Ted Pearl sent a question that we'll address during Q&A that applies to that race. Young Kim beat Gil Cisneros. In a district, again, the 39th, that Tri-County district that has close registration numbers. The GOP kept the rest of their assembly offices. And then, of course, Janet Nguyen beat Deidre Nguyen in their race for assembly. But we also found our third takeaway before we start talking about the propositions. Our third takeaway is in Orange County, according to the latest census data, 21.7% of OC's population is composed of Asian Americans. And we make the argument that this was a kind of a breakthrough election in terms of the Asian American vote and the Asian American community really further establishing its political clout in OC. We see this in many, many other parts of the United States. For example, the Arab American community in Wayne County, Michigan, the Cuban American community in parts of Florida, and many, many other regions of the U.S. But in many cases, these were Republican candidates who performed very well. If you look at Michelle Steele, at Young Kim, at various other assembly candidates, Dave Min, of course, on the Democratic side, had a very, very good day. But our third takeaway from this election is, again, furthering the political clout of the Asian American community in OC, similar to how we see this with other cultural groups across the United States. And then 10, 12 years ago, the national GOP had this endeavor called the Growth and Opportunity Project. And they had a multi-million-dollar effort to increase outreach to minority communities. And of course, it goes without saying that I think that kind of went out the window with Donald Trump as president and his racially polarizing rhetoric, particularly toward minority groups in the United States. But I wonder openly if perhaps some of these victories that we saw, particularly with Steele and with Kim, maybe can be traced back to some of the early efforts of that Growth and Opportunity Project. And it's something that Fred and I are exploring right now. And we're writing about that right now for our upcoming Voice of OC article. Fred's going to talk about propositions, and then we're going to talk about the path forward from now to Inauguration Day and entertain your questions.
Okay, thanks, Mike. There were 12 propositions on the ballot, and the state on the whole voted very conservatively, even though we are considered a liberal state. And on two, this Orange County looks a lot like the state, and even more so because when there was a conservative vote, Orange County voted even more conservatively, and in fact, parted company with the state on two propositions, 14 and 19, and I would argue that they parted company with the state in a conservative, both fiscally conservative and socially conservative direction. Now, I'm not going to go through each proposition, particularly if you see in white, they're very, very close. Over here, 58, we could say they're pretty close. But medical research bonds, Prop 14, we see a different vote. The state said, yes, let's spend $5 billion on stem cell research, but keeping to its conservative values. Orange County said no by 54%. With the change in the commercial property tax, that was what the proposal to adopt what we call a split roll so that large commercial companies don't have the same Proposition 13 protections as residences. The state said no, we shouldn't change it, but only a little bit over a majority, whereas 10 points, 9 points higher, Orange County was clear. We did not want to change anything to do with Prop 13. Local rent control also. The state barely says no, 51%, and Orange County says a big no, 10 points more. We don't want local governments to have the right to pass rent control. So that's part of their fiscal conservative heritage. Again, app drivers are employees rather than contract, therefore denying them benefits like healthcare and retirement. The state said yes. And Orange County said yes. That is, we would keep them as, we'd make them contract employees and exempt from the state requirement. But the more conservative direction, again, the state was conservative and Orange County was conservative more by 7 votes. When it comes to the next one, Mike, please, next slide. On social issues, again, the state voted against readopting affirmative action, big no, and Orange County, again, 65, also saying no. Voting rights, change it so that some 17-year-olds, that is in the year that they become 18-year-olds, can vote. 55% of the state said no, and Orange County, again, by 9 points higher, said no. Interesting was 19, and it took me a while to figure this out, and I'm still not sure I got it, because generally, this looks like a tax break in which people over 55 years of age would be able to take their tax bill anywhere in the state without having to pay an increase in taxes. Now I said, gee, that's exactly what Orange County would do. They would vote for that. And the state said, yeah, but Orange County said no. And I didn't get that. I had to read a little more. And basically, one of the provisions of Prop 19 was that, let's say you gave if you right now, if you are a parent and your child inherits your home, they also inherit its tax bill, its Proposition 13 tax bill. And what this proposition would have done is that if you lived in it, you'd be protected. But if you decided to rent it out, then this loophole would be closed. Now, there are a lot of people who have second homes, and believe me, particularly if it's a beach home, down in Laguna or Dana Point, you can have a really low tax bill and really sky-high rentals. And so people did not want to change the the tax rules in that regard, so they voted no. But the state voted yes, so that change will go through. Stricter parole sentencing and local government rent control also was on there. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I think there was one other one. The stricter parole sentencing was also one in which the Orange County voted no. It voted no, and I would argue that was because of the fact that this was voted and supported by the police unions. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Mike?
Okay, thank you, Fred. So what we're going to do right now, everyone, is we'd now like to talk. That's our take, the 4 Orange County related takeaways related to the general election from 2 weeks ago. And what we'd now like to do is focus nationally on the path forward from here to Inauguration Day and beyond. So Annie sent us a good number of questions, and I think there's some questions that are coming in the chat pane as well. Annie, what Fred and I did in preparation for this call is we just went through and each one of us put our names next to questions that we wanted to tackle first. Annie, would it be okay if I kind of moderate the Q&A and we could just go?
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. And Annie, if you could just give me maybe a 10-minute heads up when we have about 10 minutes left. Okay, fantastic.
Definitely.
So we're going to go through the questions, and then I'll ask, I'm going to pose the first question for Fred, and then I'll kind of keep an eye on the chat pane as well. Fred, the first question is, what might happen if Trump never concedes the presidency, or worse yet, if he refuses to vacate the White House? You know, Fred has a long history in presidential research, and curious as to your take on that, Fred. I'll let you handle that one.
Trump will never concede the presidency. It ain't going to happen. It's just not in his character. If he does anything, he'll say, as he has, Biden won, but it was a rigged election. And by the way, I'm running in 2024. But that's as close as we'll get. Joe Biden will be the president of the United States, sworn in on the 20th, whether Donald Trump likes it or not. There have been 21 lawsuits, 20 have been thrown out of court. The last one's pending. It'll likely be chucked. And so I don't know how he refuses to vacate the White House. The Biden campaign has been very clear that the federal government has the power to evict trespassers. So if he stays there and Joe Biden gets inaugurated, they can send the Secret Service over to evict him from the White House. But at that point, I think he'll take an extended trip to Mar-a-Lago.
Very good. Thank you, Fred. There is also a question I'll go ahead and tackle answering this one. And Fred, please feel free to chime in. And the question is, what will be the most difficult challenge facing Joe Biden beginning on day one of his presidency? And that one, in my view, goes without saying. It's, of course, handling the COVID-19 pandemic and crisis. I think that Biden, his first priority should be a national plan, which I still haven't really seen up to this point in terms of addressing COVID-19. Fred has had an excellent point that he made to me about a week ago about, and I'll let Fred make that point about Fauci. And then, you know, Paris Climate Accord, of course, I would hope that that would be one of Joe Biden's early initiatives, is rejoining the Paris Climate Accord. Immigration reform, of course, quite a bit to do his first 90 days in office. But from day one, the most pressing issue would be a detailed response to COVID-19. Fred, your thoughts on the most?
Only that I think a lot of the presidency has to do with symbolism, and Dr. Fauci has represented moderation and science. And if you look at his polling numbers, he is genuinely trusted by far more people than trust Donald Trump. So I said to Mike, if I were Joe Biden, the first thing I would do is give Dr. Fauci an office right next to mine in the Oval, in the White House. And that is that this idea that science really matters and science is what's going to get us out. And if I might add a short personal anecdote, unfortunately, about 6 weeks ago, my wife broke her hip, and it was terrible. And, you know, I spoke to the surgeon, and the surgeon said, you know, we have to do a partial, and then he said we have to do a full. And I said, okay. But the point is, I didn't go to the local supervisor or the sheriff or some elected official. The doctor spoke, it's doctor's orders. And basically I said, well, the doctor only wants what's best for my wife. It's a medical decision, and like everyone else, I'm going to do what the doctor says. And that's how we're used to doing it. I don't see a big difference when you're dealing with a personal crisis or a national crisis. Dr. Fauci and the medical community has spoken, Dr. Nichols here in Orange County, and we do what they say. And I think Mr. President-elect Biden is going to say, I believe in science. And now we're going to let science, as he did with this appointed group, tell us the way out of this. And for me personally, I wouldn't touch a vaccine that Donald Trump endorsed. But if Dr. Fauci says it's safe, I'll think about it and probably take it. I think many other Americans feel the same way.
Excellent. Thank you, Fred. I'm going to go ahead and address a question that Ted Pearl sent in, and then I have a question on the Grand Old Party for Fred. The question from Ted is, we lost Harley Ruda's 48th congressional district seat by a margin of approximately 1.5%. Do you think that the irresponsible comments made by a Democratic Party leader about Ho Chi Minh, which subsequently appeared in both the LA Times and the OC Register, had a bearing on the race? And here's my take on that. Of course, what Ted is referring to is a Facebook post that was shared that came across as sympathetic to Ho Chi Minh that, of course, generated quite a bit of controversy a while back. And here's how I would respond to that. Fred and I, in late June, wrote a piece that created some buzz, and it was a piece in favor of removing John Wayne's name from the airport and renaming the airport Orange County Airport. And we worked with Ada, and we co-authored this resolution that passed the Democratic Party, and it created quite an interesting 2 weeks of debate. And the hate mail that I received for a couple weeks after that was troubling, because in addition to the racism, I mean, just putting that aside momentarily, the people accusing me of trying to incite a riot or being affiliated with Antifa. And it made me realize that, I know hundreds of Democrats, and none of them would advocate for rioting, all very good people, but there's this narrative that a faction of the country subscribes to, that the Democrats are this radical party that's trying to overthrow the government and that's trying to basically riot in all of the cities. So to answer Ted's question, it certainly didn't help. I don't know if that correlated with a 1.5% shift in votes, but unfortunately, I think this goes along with the narrative that those on the right are often pushing, that the Democratic Party is this party of radicals. So it didn't help, Ted. It didn't help in my opinion. Don't know if it swayed it enough in Steele's favor, but that type of messaging certainly didn't help. So Fred, the next question is for you, and that is, do you think the Republicans will return at some point to the grand old party it historically was, or will Donald Trump be the face of the Republican Party for decades to come? And while you answer this, I'm going to check the chat pane to see if there are any questions. I'm sure there are.
Well, the first answer is really thoughtful. I don't know. But Donald Trump clearly is the 900-pound gorilla in the room. I think he is grooming himself to replace Rush Limbaugh. And so he will be the Howard Beale, if anyone remembers the movie Network, screaming and ranting to his millions of followers that he's mad as hell and isn't going to take it anymore, and is going to try as best he can to kick Joe Biden's administration in the knees whenever he can. So he's not going away. He's addicted to the attention, and Melania may go away, but I don't think Donald Trump is going away. And so I would imagine many of these Republicans today who refuse to stand up to him are cowering because they believe he will still be the nominee or could be the kingmaker in 2024. And that's really sad, because I believe that a good liberal party, like the Democratic Party, needs a good conservative party. And that's for a number of reasons, but I do believe we are better off as a nation with two strong parties. Now, the political party, the Republican Party I knew, the one I grew up with, and I grew up in a working family, blue-collar home. My father was a mechanic. And but in New York City and New York State, we had Governor Rockefeller, Jake Javits as senator, Charles Goodell as senator, and then we had Mayor Lindsay as the mayor of New York City. But what these Republicans said is, you know what? We want everything the Democrats want, but we know that we don't want to break the bank and spend too much money. And two, we don't want to overregulate big business, but we respect them. And I remember my father, who didn't pull punches. He said, I don't agree with these guys, but I respect them. They have a point of view. I know where they're coming from. That used to be the Republican Party here in Orange County, the party of George Will, the party of Tom Campbell and others in the area. Now it's the party of Trump. And I think it's so ridiculous. I mean, there's this alternative universe. I'm waiting for these people to say, no, Trump won the election and we never landed on the moon, the Holocaust never happened, et cetera, et cetera. There just seems to be, they've taken this notion of alternative facts to the nth degree. So I think Trump will dominate the Republican Party, and I comment that I don't think that's good for the Republican Party or for the United States or for the Democratic Party, that matter.
Thank you, Fred. I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next question so that we can get as many of these in as possible. The question is, what might Trump be able to destroy between now and January 20th that will seriously harm the country, possibly for years to come? And I'll take a quick stab at this and then turn it over to Fred. I tend to be an optimist, but I won't lie that, yes, this is a dangerous span right now, from now until Inauguration Day. Just looking at today, Trump officials auctioned off the rights to the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge before Biden can block it. That's one of many of the types of things that the incumbent, the outgoing president, can do. So it's not something that I'm going to paint, with rosy. It's not something that necessarily I feel great about. But yes, there is a good amount that can happen between now and Inauguration Day. Fred, what are your thoughts on that one?
Oh, I think he can try to do some terrible things like start a war in Iran. But I think that government moves slowly. And so he might make some executive agreements that will be overturned by Biden. I think that the military is on to him. So if he were to order a first strike on Iran, somehow I think that order might go missing. And there'll be a number of people, I think, if it's severe enough and irreversible enough, that will prevent the worst from happening. What scares me the most is this. It's not so much what Donald Trump will do. Donald Trump is over, but it's what his supporters will do. I mean, I saw a Facebook post by a Hollywood actor who compared Biden's administration to Satan. I mean, this was unbelievable. Angelina Jolie's father, I forgot the gentleman's name, right-wing Hollywood type. But
John Voight.
Pardon me? John Voight, yeah. And it's there on Facebook. Now, when you start saying that the election was rigged, which is an unbelievably obscene attack on American democracy and on the American people, this is terribly damaging, and it'll take decades to repair and further undermine citizen trust and confidence in the political system. Those are things I think are going to be there. And I worry, and I know this is going out with the YouTube, but let's just say when you got 73 million people and many of them are paranoidly crazy, and when the president has egged them on to liberate Michigan, and that results in a plot to kidnap, try, and murder the governor of Michigan, and the president doesn't see that as wrong, and no one in the Republican Party stands up, then one can only speculate what might possibly happen to the new president, only because we know shocking things have happened before in national politics. And we'll leave it at that. But so what worries me isn't what he's going to do, it's what his followers might do, because they seemed, too many of them, out of control and walking around with semi-automatic weapons.
This next question is for Fred. Fred, is for you. And a little bit of context, everyone. You might recall the City of Bell scandal in Southeast Los Angeles County, in which there was the city council and city manager and mayor. All of these individuals went to prison. For years, they were basically ripping off the community, with ripping off public funds. And going back 10, 12 years ago when this happened, it was, this first started actually in Laguna Hills, where there was a register story, and Fred was a part of that in uncovering these exuberant city manager salaries in Orange County, and that eventually led to the City of Bell scandal. So this book that's referenced in the question is actually Fred's book, From Kleptocracy to Democracy. So here it is, Fred. In your book, From Kleptocracy to Democracy, you describe the apathy of the citizens of Bell that opened the door to the corruption that brought the city to its economic knees before the LA Times and eventually the citizenry became informed and involved. Many of us feel that there is grifting and corruption at the national level far beyond what happened in Bell. There is a high percentage of the citizenry that feels that they are, in fact, staying informed due to the stories fed to them from quote-unquote alternative media sources such as Fox, One America, Facebook, and the like. So although the message from the story of what went wrong in Bell might be quote-unquote, you must stay informed, how do we control the legitimacy of that information? The illegitimacy of information that will be flowing regarding the Biden-Harris team between now and Inauguration Day and after is likely to be outrageous. What are your thoughts on that, Fred?
Well, first, I'm flattered that anyone has read my book, but so whoever picked it up, I guess I owe you $60. But in any case, thank you very much. Several things. First of all, it's a really good question. I mean, it really is. That is, it's not just information and being informed. It's making sure the information you get is accurate. And given the fall off in print sources and the rise of the internet, it's even more important. We have to recognize that the internet has become a cesspool. There's just so much fake information on the internet. And this creates a lot of problems and a tremendous opportunity for conspiratorialists to get their word out. And it's amazing to me. But again, as a teacher, I think there are a couple of things. So one, I think we have to be teaching more about media literacy, which I think is at the heart of the liberal arts, which is the search for the truth. And we have to teach people what truth is and why finding truth is so important. And there's that expression, you know, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not to your own facts. And under the Trump administration, if you remember Kellyanne Conway going on Meet the Press and telling Chuck Todd that, well, these are alternative facts. No, there are facts, and then we have different interpretations of what they mean. But facts are facts, and we have to continue to strive to get at the truth. And it's hard to get at the truth. Truth doesn't just jump up. You know, it's like digging for a diamond in a big coal mine. You got to really dig, really try. And so one, we have to support and recognize the importance of journalism. I think we have to figure out a way to fund local print reporters. And when we can, celebrate them. In the case of Bell, I was willing to actually pay for a statue to the two LA Times reporters, Jeff Gottlieb and Ruben Vives, for saving the city. It didn't get any takers, but we have to start saying nice things about the press and recognize the truly great work they do. These are unsung heroes of American democracy, and we have to figure out a way. So one of the things we have to just do is just simply subscribe to the Register of the LA Times. And even if you don't read it, or you don't read one but not the other, just subscribe to it. We have to keep them alive. We have to figure out a funding mechanism. And this goes way back to the First Amendment. They said Congress shall make no law limiting freedom of the press. That's fine, but there's no mechanism for making sure that these outlets will stay alive. And there's been a tremendous fall off in print coverage. The other is educating people, but also oversight. For the longest time, you would never see one network news program attack another. It just didn't happen. But now, increasingly, commentators like Brian Stelter on CNN, if I pronounced his name right, are going out and attacking Fox. Fox is the major purveyor of misinformation. It is a network, in Tom Friedman's words, without any integrity. And now we have to have the other media take on fake news media. And so the oversight function has usually been directed at elected officials, the presidency in particular. Now the oversight function of the press has to be at other media outlets on the internet and on television. digital media, Facebook, as well as Fox, and even self-policing. Twitter, for example, if you saw where President Trump went on and said, I won the election, that was this Monday. That is blatantly false. And Twitter put on a caveat saying, well, there are a lot of other reliable sources who say that's not true. I mean, that's what's got to happen. They've got to self-police. There's got to be oversight. We have to support journalists, and we have to have greater media literacy and education.
And Fred, on that question, there are two follow-ups, and then I'll chime in with the response to the question on cultural groups. One is from Dr. Bill. Dr. Bill asked, can a populist media outlet emerge that counters the Fox News narrative, or are we stuck with corporate-sponsored talking heads that can't excite our base the way they do theirs? And then a second question from Danette Abbott-Wicker. The problem with the dissemination of news is that all media outlets are owned by a half dozen corporations. How do you attack and tear down the Goliath? What are your thoughts on that, Fred?
They're absolutely right, first of all. And the notion of a populist media, you know, Mike and I write sometimes for Voice of OC, and it is not corporately owned. And so I think we have to find these media outlets and also media columnists that are willing to express these views. Paul Krugman for the New York Times is one, and a number of people who occasionally will rise up and tell the truth. I'm sorry, I forgot the gentleman's name, the populist from Texas. Jim Hightower also is somebody who's quite famous, and I could name a number of others. But we can go to, say, Voice of OC and write, and they will publish our writings. And I think, quite frankly, if clubs like yours can turn Orange County blue, then we certainly can lift up our pens, so to speak, or lift up our word processors and start to fill the local internet with the truth. And as we do that, more and more newspapers with editorial pages that routinely lie, like the Orange County Register, I'm sorry to say, their denial of climate change is horrific. You know, they're gonna lose publication readership. And that's unfortunate. I have a lot of good friends who work there and do a good job, but the reality is that they're gonna have to adapt or die.
Right. Janet Henry wrote in the chat pane, but when one of our local school districts, Saddleback Valley Unified School District, does not even have credentialed librarians who are key experts in media literacy, we are in trouble. And Janet, I concur. I mean, that's spot on. And it's disheartening how we always have the funding for a military industrial complex, and we spent $1 trillion obliterating Iraq, but we can't find adequate funding for our public schools in the United States and locally. It's an indictment on us. There was also a question, are there cultural groups in the country that the president-elect should be especially courting during the early days of his term? I'll take a stab at that, and Fred, let me know if you have anything you'd like to add to that one. I would certainly say that what Donald Trump did during his 4 years in office is Trump relied on his base. He wasn't a president who was out there, certainly was never out there trying to unite the country. He appealed to his base in everything that he did. And I think that his strategy going into the election was to keep his 37 or 40% and then try to pick off 7 to 10 points off of his opponent by continually putting his opponent down to try to eke out another victory. I think that one of the early things that Biden should do should be to abolish the Muslim travel ban. I think that would certainly be a strong step forward, and to reach out to all Americans, to the Latino community, the Latinx community, to our various cultural groups throughout the United States. I think symbolically he has the ability to do that, especially the team of Biden and Kamala Harris combined. That needs to be a strong effort early on. Fred, any thoughts on that, or you want to go on to the next question?
I agree with much of that. I believe his single biggest challenge is restoring faith and trust in government. and in the presidency. And yes, he can reach out and do these things, rescind DACA, the Muslim ban, this obscenity of the wall, all of those things. But I think his appeal has to be to all Americans and restating the American value, one of many, not one of Donald Trump's narrow-minded racist supporters. Sorry to go over the top. But the notion of we are not a homogeneous country, and we never have been. We are a heterogeneous country and becoming even more so. And so we are, as the E pluribus unum says, one of many, and that is the theme I hope he would strike.
Excellent. And I just got a message from Rachel saying that we're trying to wrap up in the next 5 minutes. So we'll fit in maybe one or two more questions. Thank you, Rachel, for that note. Here's one, and that is, this is Fred, let me let you chime in on this one, if you don't mind first. There are a lot of questions on possible prosecution, both in the chat pane and that were submitted ahead of time. One asked, can Trump be prosecuted for criminal charges against him in state court when he is no longer president? And can Joe Biden grant a pardon to Trump for the criminal charges he faces post-election? And then there are also some questions. Elizabeth wrote that Trump indictments in the Southern District of New York will go forward. Indeed, the tax return rulings really helped. And then I saw something from Martin earlier. Let me pull that up quickly. Let's see. Sorry, Martin. And then Martin Leah wrote, I think Trump will be indicted by the New York prosecutors for tax evasion or laundering Russian money. What are your thoughts? So Fred, your general thoughts, and then I'd like to tackle the question on national security.
You know, whether Trump can pardon himself, you know, I don't think so, but that may be have to be adjudicated. Whether Trump can resign, let Mike Pence become president, like Gerald Ford and Richard Nixon, and get Mike Pence to pardon him, I guess that is very possible. But clearly, there is no way that Joe Biden is going to pardon Donald Trump, so we could take that off the table. And yes, everybody I've read says he is likely to be prosecuted. He owes $500 million. There's all sorts of outstanding cases against him regarding slander, regarding his attacks on women, regarding his unpaid taxes. So I think one of the motivations for fighting so hard and trying to dig up dirt on Biden was that as president, you know, we have a policy of not indicting sitting presidents, but when he comes out of office, returns to even Mar-a-Lago, he is fair game. And there are a number of people, particularly in the Southern District of New York, Cy Vance's son, Cy Vance Jr., who are gunning for him. So I would not want to be Donald Trump. I would never want to be Donald Trump. But in the ex-presidency, he may, in fact, whereas Jimmy Carter served one term and went on to be heralded as an international figure and creating a whole new office called the ex-presidency, and just done stellar work. I think Donald Trump may create a new type of sordid ex-presidency, and good for him.
Fred and Mike, I'm so sorry we have to end this. This has been an incredible program, so informative, and I know we'd love to have you come back and hear the answer to the rest of the questions. So I want to also thank Ted Pearl, because he extended the invitation to you, and he's your friend. And Ted, thanks a lot for this. It was a wonderful program. I was making notes. I can't tell you how much I learned, and I'm sure all the other members did too. So this was just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure, and hope maybe sometime next year, late next year, we can see each other in person.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so we're going to go on with some more of our meeting. Is Kathy Udovich here with us? Kathy, do you want to talk about the small business group? Kathy's not here.
Mute.
Are you there, Kathy?
Yeah. Am I unmuted? Okay, yeah, it said I couldn't unmute myself or something like that. It was weird.
No,
You know that.
you're all set. Go ahead.
Actually, I don't really have anything new. Nothing's, I mean, everyone was so wrapped up the last few months with election stuff that there's really nothing new. So I will just point to the Canyon Dems, the URL for Shop Local, which would help lead people to the small businesses that have members in our club, as well as if there are any other small business people out there who would like to join the group. My email address is up above, business@canyondems.org. And that's about it. I can say that on behalf of at least my industry, the travel industry, I actually did speak with the constituent outreach person with Katie Porter's office regarding what's going on with any future legislation to help small businesses.
Great.
And sort of taking the focus off of just the big, huge companies like the airlines and cruise lines and focusing again on the distribution, which is travel agents, which is my industry. So, so it didn't necessarily cover all small businesses, but I was definitely asking about what, you know, hope there would be future. So that's me in a nutshell. And I'm just really proud of the fact that it's by Dawn. I do like my shirt. And so, yeah, there we go. How about it? Next committee person.
Okay. Oh, darn it. Okay, fundraising committee. Marty?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So we have our sustaining donor program, which I will bring you up to date on. We have 78 members who are sustaining donors. That means they give a little extra over and above the dues. And our goal for the year is $12,000. So far, we've raised $10,265. So that leaves us $1,735 short. So if anybody has a couple of dollars left over that they didn't give to a political campaign, we would love to have a couple extra bucks to make our goal. We are gearing up already to put money in our coffers because in 18 months, we've got school board, county school board, and in 24 months, we'll be back here again. So we've got lots of 2-year programs that we need to support and give a lot of money to. So, and we did an amazing job of fundraising. We gave a crap load of money to all of our local candidates, and I was very proud of everything that we were able to do together. We did have our trunk or treat a couple weeks ago for Halloween. We had a great time. We decorated our cars. We went around to different homes and let the kids trick or treat from our cars. It was all safe and socially distanced and masked. We made $245 doing that. Our next event is going to be our holiday victory lap, and that's on Sunday, December 13th. We're going to have 3 options. We've got our pandemic wine wall. Actually, I think it's going to be a wine wagon because we did have donations of wine that we want to be able to share. So $20 will get you 1 surprise bottle of wine worth at least $20. We're also going to have our safe distance Santa. Santa's going to be up on the bed of a truck, and so we can take pictures with Santa or your dog or your family or whatever. It'll make a nice Christmas card. It's plenty of time to do that if we're doing it on the 13th. And then we're also going to do our DIY holiday light tour. We're going to give you maps and addresses to all the best light displays in our local area, and you'll also get refreshments. So $20 is for 2 people, and then if you've got a family of 12, it would be $5 for each additional person. So that will be fun, I think. So you can sign up to be a volunteer. You can sign up to be a part of our evening. It's just from 6 to 7:30, drive through whenever you want. We're going to have it in a place where there will be options for food. So if you want to have dinner before or after and then swing on by, we would love that. We'll let you know where it is after you've signed up, because we're not going to be prepared for walk-ins. So once you've signed up, we will let you know where to come. And now I'm going to turn it over to Melora, because she's got some extra stuff to talk about.
Hey, Melora.
Hi there. Thanks, Marty. Marty pretty much covered everything, but we're also, this is also going to be our victory lap. After Biden and Kamala won, we decided we're going to incorporate it all into this. And so when you drive through, we're going to have our volunteers with our signs, our campaign signs, and cheering and pom-poms. And if I can figure out how we can get some music in there too, we'll do that, because we didn't get the chance to just really have fun, and we're going to do it this night. So it's pretty reasonable fundraiser. Like I say, you can do one of them or all three of them, or you can do two, whichever. It's $60 to do all three. I'm calling that the snowflake package, and that's intentional. I know I put on live on our website is the volunteer opportunity is on there. So if anyone would like to volunteer, it's up there now. I did send Rachel an email today. As soon as she gets a chance, she's going to get the actual event online for us. So again, Rachel, I sent you all the information today about it. So so if you want to participate,
I will put it up tonight, and people will be able to sign up for it by tomorrow.
Oh, you're wonderful. Thanks. No pressure. But yeah, so it should be really fun. So we can use volunteers. You can volunteer and participate in the event also, but it'll be a really fun time, and we're doing it all safely. So it should be able to be a good time and have fun and celebrate the season and pre-inauguration fun. So please join us. Thank you. Oh, wait, I got my Santa hat. I had to have a crazy hat. You guys wouldn't recognize me without my hat here. So there we go. Actually bought the Santa suit and had to send it back because it's a little bit too small. It actually fit me fine, but we're gonna have a man be Santa, I think. So, and the hat doesn't very much fit my head. So, but we're getting there. So join us.
Take care, Melora. Okay. See, I got it. Okay. Anne is our membership chair, in addition to everything else she does. And so Anne, do you want to go over the numbers?
Right. So we ended our year with 430 members. Yay. And this past weekend, we did send out a letter reminding people to renew. Now, a few of you already have. 63 have already renewed for 2021. In case you forgot, our membership runs from January to January. However, if you're a new member and you signed up from September 1st on, you are carried over. And if you renewed, you can start renewing now for next year. And so if you got a letter in the mail, it means you probably need to be renewing for next year. If you're not sure, just email me or Heather, and we'll let you know if you can't remember if you renewed in the last month or two.
Right. And you can just go to the membership on the web, and it'll look like this.
Right. So you're going under new existing members. If it goes through, you get a receipt. So that's how you know. Sometimes people click and they're not quite sure if it's gone through. If it goes through, you get a receipt. And $30 for one person, $50 for a family at the same address. And this is above and beyond, I shouldn't say, this is your basic membership. Sustaining is an extra contribution. Right. So the two are different gifts you are giving in DEMS. One is a membership and one is a contribution that's above and beyond. Just to clarify that, because sometimes people get confused on that point. So, oh, and we have more new members. So we have, Jenny has been busy. There's a holiday season coming up, guys. And we're gonna be wearing masks for 6 months, even though we're happy they're getting a vaccine together. So we have Black Lives Matter, and we have 3 or 4 different types of RGB masks. So you can actually click on them on the website to get a real good close-up. And this, I think, would make a great, because it's not seasonal really, it's a great year-round mask that you could give for a gift for somebody at Christmas time. They're $15 as usual. And so we want to thank Jenny again for making these really cute ones that you could use as a stocking stuffer or whatever.
And you could just go to the website and click on the link that's
Under
at
shop.
top.
Right.
And it's really easy.
Right. And we have 6 more t-shirts to get rid of. If you want to buy a souvenir, we have, I think, 3 medium and 3 large VDEC t-shirts if you want one for a souvenir. And that's about it.
Okay.
All right.
And
now, last but not least, we have the community outreach group, which has been kind of on hold for a while, has dealt, last year we kind of took on Family Promise as a group that we were supporting, and they're a nonprofit that basically finds temporary housing for homeless families with kids, and then proceeds to help them find permanent housing. And they've been very successful in this, and they also help them find jobs and everything else. So it's kind of been tough during COVID. They normally house them in churches, and they haven't been able to do that. So they've been having to pay rent in like B&Bs and places like that to house them. But they are doing a holiday donation drive. And so on the website, there will be this flyer, which at the bottom has items that if you would like to contribute. So basically, we're going to do it like we did our sales. You can either drop them off at my house, 24586 Via Tequila in Lake Forest, or you can contact me and at outreach@canyondens.com, and I will come to your porch and pick up the item from you. So this is obviously a very worthwhile cause. Not only are they having supporting families that they're homeless right now, they have families that they actually found permanent housing for during the year, but they're really struggling because of all the COVID situation. So there's a pretty good sized group of people that they're trying to keep their head above water and keep going through this time. So the last date is, it says December 11th. I'm probably gonna take everything over to my contact there on December 10th. So if you could have it, if you could notify me or drop it off to my house by December 10th, I would appreciate that. Okay, I think I'm done.
okay. All right. So Ken, treasurer's report.
Hi, Louise. Hi, everyone. Thank you for staying around. At this point, we actually did a fairly substantial amount of contributions to our candidates. And as a matter of fact, we were actually a little bit too zealous to some of our campaigns where we went a little bit over the allowable contribution limits, and that will be reflected in the November report. But we started the month of October at $12,809.54. Sustaining membership or sustaining donations has been a rock solid type of thing. I mean, it's a monthly thing, and a lot of people are doing the recurring, so it's really helped quite a bit. And that was 1,126. And our membership, this was the October report. Memberships, as Heather may have put into the chat window, are at 83 new members. I haven't processed all of those things, and several of them are in the November report. So we're going in the right direction at this point. Fundraising was the trunk or treat and a car parade. So that was a good thing in October. And merchandise sales, we had these are basically the residuals from the end of the booth sales. Ann and Andy were doing one last booth sale because we had a big bump in the September report. So in this is the October report. So basically, our merchandise sales are very, they're a little bit slow at this point. And we do have some expenses for Get Out the Vote, which was basically the texting costs that Annie Krinsky has been doing with I think Sarah Bird. Have you been working on that too also, I assume? At any rate, so we do have another bill coming. Yeah, we do have another bill. Yes. So
Faye was the one who was working on it.
Oh,
yeah.
Faye. Okay. All right. Thank you. So we do have another like $4,000 bill or something along those lines. So I was always worrying about keeping a reserve. A lot of our campaign contributions went to the local candidates in Mission Viejo and Rancho Santa Margarita. And it was good. It helped at least get name recognition out for these candidates, and that's what our goals of our club are. So we ended the month of October at 8379.11, and currently with the rebates or refunds back from the campaigns and the contributions, we're currently at $13,000. So we will have a $3,000 we're going to be giving to the Georgia Senate race, and then we have our other bill. So we're ending the year quite well, and it's been a very pleasant experience with the number of people that have been so generous with their money and their time. It's been very appreciative. So thanks very much, everyone.
Yeah. Okay, so next month, we don't hold a regular meeting, but we will have the Victory Lap. So we hope we see everybody at the Victory Lap. There will be a board meeting in December, and we're in the board, we're talking about how to plan for the next 2 years, and, you know, beginning to record our thoughts about what things went well, what things we wouldn't do again, and what things we discovered that we might want to do more of. And we will get back to you early in January and let you know how we're going to formalize that planning process. So we really want to get input from a lot of people in the club. And in the meantime, we want you to please stay safe and stay healthy and stay engaged, because we know that helps all of our mental health, and to know that we're all in this together. And if you do need assistance of any kind, there is a link on our website, and there are people who volunteer to do shopping or do errands or to provide assistance. So stay with us. And so I'm going to stop screen sharing, and we're just going to open the mics on everybody, and you can visit.